Welcome, everyone, to this special episode of Start Canada podcast. We are taping this episode live today from the Disrupted Conference. This is Tech Manitoba's virtual three-part conference series, talking all about the role of technology today and how it shapes recovery. Today on the show, we're going to talk candidly about business adaptation during the pandemic, as well as strategies for recovery post-pandemic. So ultimately, this new economic situation requires businesses and educational institutions to employ strategies of innovation. It's being said that how organizations handle this piece now will in part define their reputation and their performance potentially for years to come. And so I'm certainly not alone to dig into this topic today. We have with us three amazing guests, all from tech companies founded in the heart of Canada. And I'm very excited to introduce them to you and to have them share their unique perspectives on what their companies have been doing to cope so far and the effects that they anticipate that will follow as well. So to start, let me tell you a bit about each guest. First, we have Mavinkurve. She is the COO and co-founder of Sightline Innovation. If you haven't heard of them, they are quite a big AI and data trust technology company. And she is an industry expert and advisor in applied artificial intelligence and data governance. So she's developed national data strategy and IP recommendations for the Canadian government. She's also represented Canada at the G7 ministerial meetings on AI and the future of work. She is always focused on the practical enterprise applications and implications of AI and data. Mai was acknowledged as one of the 30 most influential women in AI in Canada, and we have her here today. Mai, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hi. So, Mai, I was just reading recently a McKinsey report on digital leadership through COVID-19. And the very first recommendation was leaders need to accelerate their journey to the cloud in order to digitize quickly and effectively in the wake of COVID-19. So this is certainly a testament to the work that you are doing, and we are honored to have you with us here. Start off by telling us, what do you feel has been the largest impact of the pandemic on the technology industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think really what we've seen, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here. I mean, you know, being in tech for, you know, the last 15, 20 years, I think really the biggest thing that we've seen is the speed of adoption, really. You know, what we've seen is that we've looked at tech as sort of an inevitability, I think, in a lot of businesses, but now what we're seeing is it's becoming a necessity. And so really the pressure is back on the technology companies to ensure that, you know, are we purposeful and focused in how we are delivering real value, real tangible value to businesses at such a greater speed than we've ever had to really do before. And of course, behind the scenes is a lot of that pivoting and innovation that has to happen. But really, I think it's the speed at which we have to deliver value to customers. It has just been, you know, amplified.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners today have felt that pressure. We are, again, recording live at the Disrupted Conference, where most of our audience are tech companies who are dealing with a lot of these changes. So we're going to get into that today a little bit deeper. Our next panelist I'll introduce is Peter Hutchison. Peter's the founder and CEO of Kaput, Inc. They are the only on-demand roadside assistance service that is run fully through an app. So with no subscription required, it works as a pay-as-you-go type model, not when you don't need them. So originally, he's from Trinidad and Tobago. Peter studied both information systems technology and computer systems technology. He has worked as an IT contractor, founded his own IT services business. And now, since 2017, after his own bad experience on the road, Peter is disrupting roadside assistance with his crowdsourcing model of service and his mobile app, Kaput. Peter, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Margaux. You made me sound better than I am, but thank you.
That's what our bios are for, right, Peter? But we know you have a lot to share with us today, and that, in fact, you are quite accomplished. So start by telling us, what's one thing that you want our audience to take away from today's conversation?
You know, I want everybody to identify with some aspect of our experiences as founders and to be motivated to either continue pushing through or to start something of their own. I'm not saying it's all going to be a bed of roses, but it'll be definitely a rewarding experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to share direct from your experiences today from all three of you. So getting to our third guest today, Katherine Regnier is the CEO and founder of Coconut Software. This is a customer engagement platform trusted by some very large banks and credit unions, such as Capital One, Arvest Bank, Vancity, and even the Royal Bank of Canada as well. So she and her team believe in a world where financial institutions can build long-lasting and personal relationships with their customers, while enabling technology to do so. To date, she's raised over $11 million for this company, and Katherine is also a wife and a mom of 2. Katherine, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Margaux.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you here. And Katherine, can you start by telling us a little bit about what you feel has been the largest impact on the tech industry so far, and especially since the pandemic, of course?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting when we talk about businesses and tech businesses specifically is that they're all businesses, even retailers are now, tech companies. We have to be able to offer that digital medium. But I think first and foremost, I think Mai did a great job of talking about how we have to deliver more of our product and be more adaptive, make sure we're delivering value. I think for me, when I look at the spin on that is the people, all the people that the pandemic has affected, and how do you as a leader provide some sort of certainty and vision trying to navigate through this, because we're used to tech companies. You see them, very collaborative spaces, a lot of creative thinking, and now we're at home, in our offices, and that's a big part of navigating the pandemic with technology is just that human element.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will certainly take some time to get into that in our conversation today. But finally, I will welcome our last piece of the puzzle here, which is you, our virtual Disrupted Conference audience. Thanks for joining us here. And to all 3 of you, I'm so glad you could join us today for this live Start Canada podcast taping. So I want to start off, and I'll throw this out to all of you. Start by telling us a little bit about your journey with your company and kind of how you've gotten here today in the pandemic. And this is, of course, a big question, but we'll try and do it in a swift manner. So maybe, May, I'll start with you in a concise way. What's been the path of Sightline innovation kind of from inception to now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it really is just in our name. Like, innovation has kind of just been our constant in pretty much everything that we do. I mean, if you look at sort of the history of our company, we started in applied AI, and we've evolved that business just by understanding what our customers need into that data trust and data governance kind of capability. And so really at the end of the day, what does Sightline do? We help companies to leverage data assets in a meaningful way for AI and for other things. And, we work in a lot of different industries, smart cities, public health, so really for me, what I've seen is, being an entrepreneur, it comes back to innovation, really at every turn. So yeah, hopefully that was concise enough for you.
That was great. Peter, we'll throw it to you.
My point there. I think that during the pandemic, people are always stressed and that kind of thing. And I think for our business, we provide that roadside assistance, but we try to make the experience easy. We try to make it less stressful, because it's already a stressful situation. So that's why we try to innovate our product. We came up with new products. We added things to the business that we didn't have prior to that COVID experience. And that was so that it'll be easier for our customers to to go through this with less stress.
Yeah, absolutely. And Katherine, tell us a little bit about the journey of your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, if there's anyone thinking about going into tech, I started my company with a $5,000 loan. So don't think that you need to have millions and millions to make it happen. You can do it. And tech people or entrepreneurs, we always find a way. During the pandemic, we obviously saw a big shift. Our company enables customers to book online with their bank. And usually that's quite traditional, where you're going in branch for an appointment. But as COVID came, we needed to find a way for them to be able to meet virtually, just as we've done today. It's really fascinating how even this conference has adapted to use technology so we can connect with all these folks. And so I think it goes to show you that all companies had to adapt. We had to change our roadmap. And that's really what great companies do, is you adjust, you listen to your customers. we had a customer that said, we need this, and we were able to build it in 2 weeks, and it totally changed the trajectory of how they could operate. And that's great, because we're impacting, I keep going back to the people, how they can connect with their customers, which is so important.
Well, and why don't we just continue with you right away here, Katherine? So you just mentioned you guys were able to create something in 2 weeks that made a really big difference. What was the issue that arose because of the pandemic? And then what was it that what was that thing you created in 2 weeks to fix it?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to the banking model, you have a ton of advisors that are used to going into a branch and doing their work. And so they had to switch to this whole mobile office. So some of them didn't even have laptops. And if they had laptops, they didn't have cameras. And so they had a whole lift in that. And then it's, how do we integrate Zoom or Microsoft Teams or these different elements into this appointment experience and being able to track that and log that? So that was something we had to hustle on and deliver extremely quickly. And the other piece to that was just the phone callbacks, the call volumes. If you can imagine, in a pandemic, people are losing their jobs. They have to go and serve. Money is critical. It's survival. And so even the call volumes, we had to say, okay, how can we help them manage this? Get them to book in a time so the customer experience isn't me sitting on hold for 2 hours and then someone accidentally clicks, hangs up. Really bad customer experience.
If anyone's still dealing with that right now, if call volumes are tricky or really good customer care is still something tricky for people that might be listening in, do you have any front-hand tips that you can provide around fixing that?
Oh, it really depends on the size of an organization. Sometimes when they're smaller, they can move it quickly. But I think just giving the option, our real philosophy is whether they want to come into your store, whether they want to connect with you online, just give them all the different options, whether that's digital or in person, and just make it more convenient. It might not be Coconut, but there's so many great startups out there that can help companies solve the problems that they're trying to solve.
Fair, yeah. And Peter, in your case, there were simply less vehicles on the road when the pandemic shifted things, because what Katherine was just talking about, people were working from home, so they weren't driving as much. What did that mean for your market decrease and for your business?
So yeah, we got a little hit there with the persons working from home. So definitely we had to adapt and figure out what other avenues we can take, to allow the business to continue to grow. So what we did is, our main business is the roadside assistance aspect of it, but we added another part, which is the full service tire service system. So what we do is we have a mobile truck that's fitted with the tire balancer, tire changer, everything. So it'll just pull up to your house, pull up to your office, wherever you are, and it will change your tire, balance your tire, do everything there. So it was something we weren't looking to do. It's something that was not in our minds, but we had to quickly adapt so that the company can continue going, because you are right, our customer base was significantly decreased.
Well, and good job pivoting quickly and finding a whole other branch of service to provide there. Now, May, for you, I know some of the changes you made were more heavily around adapting on the product side of things. Can you tell us a bit about those changes and what the pandemic caused for you? And then, of course, what you did to overcome it from a product perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think for us, really, it was, the technology and the product that we offer, like I said before, is about enabling the use of data in a secure, trusted, and governable fashion. And so for us, when we kind of go to companies and customers, really the focus is on how are you leveraging your data and ensuring trust in how that data is used. And so when COVID really hit, it kind of, clicked for us that, okay, well, customers, enterprise customers, governments, et cetera, they need to now adapt their own businesses based on the data that they have. And so what we were able to do is sort of tweak our messaging really to adapt to the COVID market. And so to be very specific around what I mean by that is, okay, we need to, as an example, in the public health domain, we know that there's so many more mental health challenges occurring, and the ability to leverage data assets to go back and help the public, help customers, help your employees around managing public health or mental health, but using data to be able to, quantify that and kind of create evidence-based solutions around that. That sort of, that's part of what we do. And so we were really able to say, okay, let's take the solution that we have and tweak it a little bit for the COVID lens for the current challenges that we have. So again, similar to what Katherine was saying, we got to deliver new solutions, in a matter of weeks, and not have this 6-month development cycle to kind of see if that helps the market with the current conditions, that everyone's really under.
Yeah, certainly. You've all mentioned some really interesting pieces. Is this the piece that you were most proud of in the last year, or is there any other aspect to the change that you would like to mention?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can jump in a little bit there. I mean, definitely that is one aspect of it, but I really like, what Katherine was talking about. At the end of the day, it really is about the people, and it's not just about, giving value to your customers, but it's really also about the people within our organization. And, as entrepreneurs and as leaders of our business, we can only do what we do because of our staff and really the people that are supporting our vision and really the execution of it. And so I think, what I'd say I'm most proud of is really having our staff be resilient and kind of walk the journey with us and support us, through really the ups and downs of the last year, right? And perhaps more downs than ups. But they've stuck with it, and that's tough to do, because everyone's juggling their home life and personal life, and so burnout can be a thing, but people have stuck with us. So I think that's really what I think we're most proud of.
Yeah, I think that people aspect is great. Oh, Peter, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree with Mai as well on that. Is that the people, my staff, they stuck with me through the pandemic. They helped us. They continued. And one of my proudest moments too was being able to provide some sort of job and sustainability to even people, the contractors on the outside, during a time where people were losing their jobs and that kind of thing. So that was a proud moment for me in terms of I'm able to contribute to the community and to the society at large. And yeah, that was a proud moment for me.
Mm-hmm. And Katherine, from your perspective, you did mention people right from the outset. How do you think that leaders need to lead during this unique time?
Margaux, one of the things that when I was a small company and I'd hear these great speakers talk, and they would talk about culture and values, and I thought I really understood it, because there's 5 of you in a phone booth and you're like, yeah, we have great culture. I think what I would suggest anyone who's listening, I don't care if you have 2 people or it's just you or you have 10 people, is we actually created a list of values, and ours is CHEERS, which is collaborate, honesty, empathy, encouragement, respect, and share. And I think that's the reason people can come together, because we were able to say, okay, this is how we're going to operate, and it doesn't matter if we're in a pandemic or not. And I think it fostered that culture. And you see Jeff Bezos the Trailblazer book, Mark Benioff talks about the importance of culture, and when things are bad, that is the one thing that keeps you together. What I didn't understand is how important those values would be in this time. You just think, oh, they're values, but they're at the heart of people and why they join your company and why maybe they shouldn't be at your company. So I think that's also important.
Mm-hmm. And that's maybe some good advice in there too, to revisit the values that you have, publicly listed or internally listed, and make sure that you're really in line with them right now. I'm wondering too, from each of you, was there a point when you stopped and actually reviewed your strategic plan as a whole? Like, was there a moment where you said we need to change something overarchingly that we're doing as an organization?
I wouldn't mind jumping on that, Margaux, if that's okay. I know I'm a bit delayed with the audio, but we really went what we call into, it sounds horrible, but went into wartime CEO mode, which we looked at everything. And some of the things we did is we cut our budget by $2 million. And that included the executives taking salary cuts. Unfortunately, we did have to do some layoffs, which was one of the hardest days that I've ever had at the company. These people are your friends and they've given you everything. So I think it's always going back and looking at the business plan and saying, how are we operating? startups are so encouraged to just go spend money like crazy. And I've always tried to take more of a calculated approach to that, to say, okay, if something happened, can we adjust? And I think because we had that efficiency in our spending, it allowed us to make adjustments, and we kept our targets the same, and were able to hit that, which was tremendous.
Well, and Katherine, to continue on that topic for a second, you mentioned, quickly in there that you guys even went so far as to have some of your executives take pay cuts. Now, if you had a tip for people listening in, if that was something they were considering, but they weren't really sure how to approach it, do you have any advice on doing that well without risking losing good people?
I wish I could take credit for this, but one of my mentors said to me, who had gone through this, said, Katherine, everybody really focuses on the people that they need to let go, but you have to spend just as much time, if not more, with the people that are staying. And so that day I had 15-minute meetings with every single employee from like 8 till, 6 p.m., just to let them know. And one of our values is collaboration and honesty, and just saying like, I'm sorry, this isn't going to work, or I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let some of your friends or colleagues might not be here. And so I think just we can never communicate too much in these moments.
Good advice. Yeah. Anyone else, as far as your strategic plans changing, or were there any areas where there was an impactful reallocation of funds?
Yeah, I can kind of jump it. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, no, what I was going to say, obviously all of the above of what Katherine said, but, we definitely had to do a couple of layoffs. And in terms of sort of the strategic direction, I think, in some ways for Sightline, we were able to kind of just bring more focus to the business. We had all these you always have these grand plans and this grand budget. And we really needed to make some tough decisions, not just on the strategic side, but more so on the execution side and the operational side. It's like, we needed to kind of ask ourselves a lot of tough questions around, are the right people in the right places and the right positions? And where are things breaking? Because I come back to that speed element of needing to deliver quickly. And I am on the operations side, just being the COO. So I really focus more on what's broken in the process, and it forced us to really kind of take a harder look at that, and kind of just tweak a lot of that.
May, what's that feeling after you've asked those questions and made some changes? Was there a feeling of relief, or was it still just tricky all throughout?
I think it's this quote that I used. I think when I started this entrepreneurship journey, it's like, be comfortable with discomfort, right? And it's a constant evolution, and I feel like it's never quite right, but we're making progress, and so we're kind of now the ship is heading in the right direction. So yeah, it's tough. I don't think you're ever done.
Yeah, sure. And Peter, I'm sure you can add to that. You were going to jump in.
Yeah, no, I was going to say our strategic plan definitely changed a lot, because originally we were going forward with our original products, and then we had to switch. So we had to take some of the finances from pushing forward for marketing and that kind of thing, and put it towards leasing equipment, purchasing equipment to add that new product. So there was definitely that shift, and we had to sit back and look, okay, what do we allocate to what for better efficiency? And that was a little difficult, because we had less money for marketing, less money for other things, even staffing that we wanted to bring on. But all in all, it's something that needed to be done, and I guess it had a good turnout.
That's good in the end. Now, May, I wanted to ask you something. We have many CEOs tuning in today who likely already know that general digital transformation is required. And, some of them are on the path to do it already, including leveraging the cloud, data, and even AI. Now, if we're looking to a post-COVID-19 world, they know that this is important for their business, and have probably even, gotten their team already on the path to fixing this or to bolstering it for them. So why is it that the move to digital transformation can come along so slowly, even though it might be something a company's been talking about doing for years?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is just risk aversion, right? People are afraid to kind of take that step. It's something that's, like I said, it's outside your comfort zone, and so you're not able to kind of make that leap. And really, what I would encourage, any leader to do is, you may not be able to do it all, right? Like you have to know what your core focus is. What is your value add? What are you bringing to that ecosystem? And partner where you need to. So maybe, cloud services, it's not your thing, and that's okay. Get out there, partner with companies where that is their core focus, And when we look at sort of just overall digital transformation, you kind of brought that up before. COVID has just slammed that whole adoption cycle. So you've got laggards, from your customer base that are looking now for cloud. So, sometimes they say fake it till you make it. You just gotta, you gotta get in there and connect with partners that have that skill and that capability, because we are going to be there. We're seeing businesses across the board, not just moving to cloud. It's not just about cloud. It's every aspect of their business needs to be digitized. And so, that is part of what, we're all going to have to adapt to.
Yeah, it's certainly unavoidable at this point, and thank you for the advice and the tips in there too. I do want to talk a little bit more about the team aspect of things that everyone's kind of been touching on here already. So if we're talking about the remote work piece, I know some of you moved your teams from in-person to virtual during this time. I'd like to understand from you firsthand, what were some of those really awesome lessons learned in that process of shifting your team to be virtual or remote?
So what we've done is we are now sort of a hybrid. So we have our offices in Winnipeg and Toronto, both open for people that want to come. But really, we're all pretty much remote. And, I'll be honest, for Sightline, it wasn't a big leap. We are so used to already being, kind of remote. We never had, heavy restrictions around, you got to be in the office and do this and do that. We really wanted the ability for flexibility. But in terms of the tips, I really would say, like, one thing is, people do get burnt out being on video calls, constantly, like back to back all day long. So really be, intentional about, what is the point of this meeting? Do I really need to have this meeting? Does it really need to be video as well? I mean, companies are now entering people's homes. And that's sort of, not having that separation of home and work, that's tough for employees. It's tough for us as leaders. So let's just be intentional about, how we're doing our digital and online collaboration, really is what I would say for advice.
Yeah, intentionality is a great point there. Did anyone else want to add as far as what your experience was like, or what unique hurdles you might have gone through during this shift to remote, or what you learned from the experience?
I wouldn't mind just sharing. It's kind of interesting when we talk about the teams and whatnot. I think about talent. And so we definitely had our office in Saskatoon and Toronto, and people went there, and you offer this flexibility. But what has really happened with COVID is we're saying, okay, we're remote first. We're always going to have these offices if people do need to interact with people. I do think mental health is so critical, and people need to be around people, and we want to create that environment that has that coconut vibe and feel for them. But it's opened up our eyes to say we can now hire talent from anywhere. But what's really interesting about that is other companies are thinking the same thing too. So I think in terms of competitiveness for talent is now like everything's fair game. And so that's something that we think about as an executive is, we're not just competing with, let's say, prairie tech startups. We're now competing on a national scale for talent, and it's a very competitive market.
Yeah, and I would actually jump in on that. Oh, sorry to interrupt you, Margaux. Yeah, no, I was going to just jump in on that. Like, yeah, I mean, we made a similar kind of decision. We actually did our first fully remote hire about a month ago, and I mean, it widens the horizon. It's just incredible now. When we talk about access to talent, it's just a different conversation at this point, because you really don't have sort of the geographical boundaries anymore.
Yeah. Well, and how do you find the best talent right now? You've had your first hire, you're saying, has anyone else experienced hiring remotely where you actually learned something from that process too? Because it is a bit of a different feeling doing everything virtually.
Yeah, we actually launched in Regina about a few months ago, and everything was done virtually. Like when we were hiring some of the roadside partners over there, it was all virtually done. They sent in their paperwork and everything electronically. And I thought it would have been difficult in terms of like just talking to someone over a video. Could I read them properly? Could I figure out who they are, their attitudes, that kind of thing? But it turned out to be really good. And I got them in a better place. And why I say that is because they were more comfortable being not in the same room as the person that's interviewing them. And I got to see I got to see a more comfortable and relaxed side of them, because it's not right in your face, but it's still, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so there are some potential advantages there, because there's that extra wall, right, that might make some people feel more comfortable, albeit it could do the opposite if people are flustered with their tech when they log in and things like that. So have you guys experienced any other notable changes to your human resources that would be worthy of sharing here?
I'm trying to think. I mean, I think, it's kind of a tough one. I mean, I think it's been, like I said, ups and downs, right? Like it's been a tough year. Like let's be honest here. Like it's not been rosy. We've all as leaders had to make really tough choices about the people that we have. I don't know if there's anything specific that I can add to that beyond, it's been brutal. And we're at that point now where I feel like we can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully, bring back better, as everyone's saying, right? Build back better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit as far as the success pieces in the future a little bit. What have these changes that we've discussed so far really meant for your organization? What does it make it look like in these next steps as recovery happens and as hopefully the pandemic continues to ideally wind down? We of course are all seeing and experiencing at the same time, but these changes, what have you felt the future is going to look like from here?
I think it's a really interesting thing that you bring up, Margaux. So what I'm curious to see is right now it's an even playing field for talent. We're all remote. And I'm curious to know, once we go back to perhaps being more in the office and more collaborative and seeing people, if those individuals that are working fully remote are going to miss that connection or not. So I'm curious to see how talent is going to prioritize having offices versus, we're kind of forced to be in this remote. So I don't know how that's going to unfold, but I'm curious to see how it gets prioritized when picking a company to work for.
Yeah, well, and there are some fully remote companies that were set up as such even before the pandemic, and some of them have a lot of their documentation online as to how they do it. So there are resources, and we can share them outside of the show, of organizations you can look to. They were set up from day one as remote. What does that look like compared to what we're doing now, which was adaptation of in-person, move to remote, or this hybrid model many of our organizations are working in. So there are lessons I think that people already can help share with one another around that.
Do you know what else, Margaux? Sorry, I get passionate about this. The other thing too is I think in the pandemic, our social activities are now virtual. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think it's more comfortable if you can work all day, be in Zoom calls, but you can go have coffee with your friend after work. And I think that's really the element of that connection that people are missing. And it might not have to come through the workforce. It could happen through these social pieces.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely. Now, Peter, to stay competitive, there's evidence right now that we need to be really customer centric. We need to be relatively simple in our delivery, and we need to be tech driven. These are all things that your company was able to do, being super customer centric, having that model that's really flexible for them and using tech to do so. Was this what you set out to do right from the start, or was there a change in there that allowed you to find that success throughout this unique time that we're in?
So yeah, I would say customers was our focal point. That's where we wanted to satisfy because of my personal experience. But I think it expanded to not only the customer, but the worker as well. and making sure they're satisfied, they have a decent job, something to look forward to, extra cash in their hand. But our focus on customer became even more aggressive in terms of when the pandemic happened, because as I said earlier, we knew people were a little frustrated, right? And to have your car break down in the middle of nowhere during the pandemic where you're already frustrated is not a good thing. So I guess our focus became even more aggressive on the customer, but I would say we set out in the beginning to do that, yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, do you guys have any secrets that you're holding back or true insights on how you've been able to stay relevant during the pandemic? What do you think contributed most to your organization staying above the fold, if you could pinpoint something?
Ooh,
I would probably go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for us, honestly, there's so many different reasons, but if I have to kind of pinpoint one, it really has just been the ability for us to pivot, really. Like, I mean, and I know that like we use that word a lot, but it's so difficult to do that, like to actually operationalize change and rapid change, and a lot of rapid change over the course of 12 months. That's tough to do. And so, you know, it really is sort of that ability to pivot, and that is culture, people, you know, resiliency in people. It's kind of building that adaptability. You know, so I really just, I would say it's the ability to execute on a pivot. It's not so much the pivot to say, I want to do this. It's how do you actually execute on that change?
Mm-hmm.
And I think to add on to what Mai just shared is that I think the secret sauce to being able to pivot and keeping everything operating is that people really have to understand the why. And again, when you're a small team, everybody kind of gets it. But as your teams get bigger and they're remote, they're not hearing those small conversations. So I think it has to be extremely clear communication. And then why are we doing this? Because that doesn't always go through the whole organization, and it creates for, you just need to be clear. So the more clarity you can provide is so critical.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you have multiple anecdotes saying that same thing here. Peter, we'll jump to you here in a second, because I think so many times there's organizations that they are holding back little pieces because they're afraid of what reactions might be. But you know, we all know, we've heard it a million times, and we've heard it again 2 times here, that sharing the why and not, you know, don't worry about oversharing, because your team are really wanting to get behind the changes that you're making. They just need to understand why. And so this is really good advice. Peter, did you want to add?
Yeah, just to continue on what Katherine said there, pivoting to, for us, is just putting aside your personal feelings and your ego, because you go into this business and you say, hey, this is the business, I know this will work, and you're so tied to it, it's your baby, right, that you don't want to change it. But at the end of the day, you kind of have to change it to stay above the rest, to continue striving as a company. So I would say putting aside your ego sometimes will help a lot.
Certainly. Okay, now we are at a very fun part of our episode. Just because we are live at Disrupted doesn't mean you get out of doing our speed round that we have in all of our episodes. So your job is to say the first thing that comes to mind and keep it short and sweet. Are we ready?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. First question, describe yourself in a word or 2.
Extra.
Collaborative, empathetic.
Resilient.
Awesome.
And I just got one word, resilient.
Yeah, resilient. That's all I can think of right now.
That's a good one. It's a good one.
What motivates you?
Business.
Children. Sorry, I had to go personal on that one, Margaux.
Yeah, no, that's great. Whatever comes to mind. What keeps you up at night?
Oh man, in one word?
No, it could be a sentence, just short and sweet.
So many things.
Are we going fast enough? Are we going fast enough? That's what keeps me up at night.
Okay, yep. Who has been the most influential person?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, we've got a lag there. Okay, next question. Who has been the most influential person for you?
My dad.
One of my first. Oh, your dad. That's a good one.
Yeah.
outside of family, Neil Dempsey, one of my advisors and first investors.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What is one thing
in the last?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna use the family card, but honestly, in the pandemic, I think, I know this is a business and technology conference, but I do think we need to prioritize health a lot and mental health. So I would say, like, my mother on the sort of personal side, which really matters in business.
Yeah.
Okay. What is one thing in business that you are so happy that you did?
Do it.
Took the chance. Just did it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What's one thing that you were wrong about?
Everything.
Oh.
Lots of things.
How quick I was going to be a millionaire. That Excel sheet lied to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's most important for your mental health?
Prioritizing yourself.
For me, it's I need alone time. Like, I need to be alone to have clarity.
Yeah. Doing fun things, outdoor stuff.
Okay, awesome. How do you personally continue to learn and grow?
Reading.
I'm always open
tons
to
of
new
books.
ideas. Yeah, lots of. I'm not a reader so much as I used to be, but watch lots of YouTube videos. You can learn a ton of stuff.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I would say YouTube and my staff.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so more specifically here, the next question is, what's your favorite book or resource?
YouTube.
Mm.
Any specific channel, any specific book you're reading right now that comes to mind?
Ooh. Yeah,
I'm stumping you guys on some of these.
So a great, there's a SaaSer podcast is really good. That's a great one for companies.
SaaSer,
like if you're learning the tech, that's a great one. Radical Candor is a great book. The Lean Startup is great. If you're just starting out, that's an amazing one too.
Yeah, those are good
Awesome.
ones.
Okay. What does being a leader mean to you?
Understanding.
Speed round. Come on.
Yeah. Not very fast.
I think it's really just inspiring people to believe that they can do more than they think in a way, It is really kind of inspiring. Yeah.
Okay, that's our speed
I
round.
think
You can relax.
clarity. Okay. We're good.
But go ahead, Katherine. You were going to add about being a good leader, having clarity. Keep going.
Oh, I was going to say, I think the best leaders kind of step aside and help those to really show how they're making an impact. So I think as a leader, it's my job to move obstacles that are in the way of our team trying to accomplish something. I think that's what great leaders do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've always loved that definition of it, of being a leader. Okay, so you guys were funny when I asked you what kept you up at night. You said everything. So we'll see next time if there's something more specific. But it has been a tricky year, right? So there has been a lot of things. So if we're looking to the future then now, and after all, so many of these changes have been in place, and that hopefully the toughest year is behind us, what are some long-term or short-term impacts that you've seen or that you anticipate seeing for organizations that don't successfully pivot and innovate and set themselves on a clear path for recovery?
It's hard to say this, but
It's a really loaded question.
They may fail. Some of them fail. Some of them will find difficulty to finding traction, and it'll take them probably a longer time to get where they want it to be, as opposed to a shorter time had they just pivot.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got to redefine, I think in the past we've kind of said, like, in some ways pivoting is a failure. And I think what we're seeing now in this next year is pivoting is such an integral component of business success. Like that to me is, so you kind of have to be open to pivoting. And I mean, when I think about technology and technologists, like, as our audience is, it's almost like you cannot be in technology if you oppose change. Technology is about that constant pivot, constant evolution. So, embrace it a little bit. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mai. Every time we get asked about what skills someone going into the field of technology should have, a lot of times the answers are not really the hard technical skills. The answers are you need to be someone who's adaptable, someone who's creative, someone who's, willing to take on change. And so that's exactly to your point right there. They are a little bit different skills that we might be needing now to really stay relevant.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you think it could affect the performance of the industry as a whole? So where do you think the tech industry is going now? Give us your predictions. Don't be shy. What's going to be the most important piece?
I think one of the important things that we're discovering is that we did put, I think about how much time that you spend on the road or traveling and all of these things that are really exhausting, is that you can actually be very productive in this new digital world. And I think that's something that I put so much time into, doing so many things that maybe I didn't necessarily have to do. And so I think there's something to be said for, I don't think we're going to, this whole going back, I don't think that's going to exist. I think it's here to stay.
Mm-hmm. Mai, were you going to add?
Well, I was going to kind of bring up another topic, but just sort of talking about predictions for the future. I mean, I think we're all accepting that, technology is kind of this, necessity in all businesses. But what I think we'll see, and I also would like to see, is more social innovations. So really kind of looking at, we've seen how much the pandemic has caused challenges for people across the board. So I'd like to see, new technology companies coming out and really kind of having that lens of what is the social value add, not just about, I've got to hit my target and this is, the money I'm going to make. But I think we'll see a lot more of those social innovations, or at least maybe I'd like to see that happening. And then obviously on sort of the sustainability side, right, which kind of ties in a little bit, is a lot of innovations I think we're going to see around tech and sustainability as well.
Mm-hmm. Peter, from your side, what advice would you have for entrepreneurs that are trying to build something new during this unique time, or trying to innovate during this time?
I would say go for it. I think COVID or the pandemic brought a whole new segment within business in terms of things to do, businesses to open. I saw a business open the other day, a tech company called Clubhouse. Some of you may know it. It's an invite by only basis, but things like that. It's a social application in terms of you can learn stuff. It's like a podcast where you can talk, right? And it's amazing. And where the listener can respond and talk and ask questions and stuff, and it's all audio based. But to me, I was listening to it the other day and I learned so much from it. It was a social thing because people will be able to interact with each other. So there's so many new businesses that could be brought out of this. You just gotta think about something that you want to change. And it's most of the time it's simple. It's not anything great, but it's something that somebody else is suffering and they wish that they can change as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Margaux, I wanted to just add to what Peter said, if that's okay. I mean, when we're kind of giving advice to kind of people thinking about starting a business, one thing I feel like I've learned actually in the last year is, progress over perfection, right? Like I feel like sometimes we make all these big plans and we're like, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And as soon as you write it down, it's kind of thrown out the window. So it's like, just take small steps. Like, don't think about like, I've got to accomplish this big thing. So yeah, just remember progress over perfection. Like that matters. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mai. Okay, now we're just getting to the end here. So I want to hear from each of you as far as what is next for you and your organization. And if our listeners want to learn more about you or get in contact with you, how can they do so? So Katherine, we'll start with you.
Sure. If you want to get in contact with me, you can reach me on Twitter at Regnier, LinkedIn, obviously, and Instagram. I have a new dog. You'll love to see him all the time on there. What's next for us is really just getting through this 2021 plan, and then just continual expansion. So hitting our numbers, continuing to double year over year, and having a lot of fun while we do it along the way.
Awesome. Peter.
I would say it's expansion, just going off of Katherine there, just continuing to expand throughout Canada, dominating that roadside assistance market and being the #1 name in Canada and in the United States when that time comes.
Awesome. And if people want to find you, where do they go?
So if someone wants to find me, they can send me an email at peterh@kaputinc.com. And I'll be happy to talk to anybody that wants to get into contact with me.
Awesome. And Mai?
Yeah, so best place to reach me is probably on LinkedIn. And yeah, I mean, in terms of our plans this year, I think it really is sort of on the scaling side. It's like, scaling operations, and we're looking at going outside of Canada this year as well. So it's going to be a busy year for Sightline.
Awesome. Okay, Katherine. Oh, Peter, go ahead.
I was going to say I'm also on LinkedIn. I'll start using it more.
Perfect. And we'll link to all of you so that the listeners can find you, and all of our fans at Start Canada podcast. We'll get that in the show notes at a later date once this episode goes live. So for everyone here today, thank you for being with us. Mai, Katherine, Peter, thank you for being on the show today. And to our Tech Manitoba Disrupted audience, thank you for being with us for this live taping.